Are you tired of the cookie-cutter approach to education that's stuck in the last century? Are you seeking a win-win situation where your family thrives, your kid's education is revolutionary, and you still get to chase your own dreams? Welcome to Unschooled Unleashed. Unlock your child's genius. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, an unapologetic rebel dad and promoter of what many consider to be educational anarchy. You know the world isn't going to be won by those that just toe the line. It's the innovators, the visionaries, and the resilient spirits that are going to thrive. Our mission here is to forge those world changers within our very homes with less stress, energy, and time. Unschooled Unleashed starts now. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Unschooled Unleashed. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, and today we're going to talk about reading. I think it's a pretty good episode because I think there's a lot of people who struggle with reading in adulthood, who probably have some trauma. We have this fixed mindset around reading that, I don't know, at least I do, and I talk a little bit about this in the episode, of how reading is for school. And it's not something that, is really done outside that. I've had trauma in my life regarding reading because of teachers, and I don't recall my parents doing it, but definitely teachers, which made me hate it. And I think it's very important to cultivate a love for reading. So I'm going to tell you how we do it. And the mindset, that's really what I focus on, is the mindset. It's the unschooling mindset. So if that sounds like something that would benefit you, stay tuned and let's dive in. Today we're going to talk about reading. More specifically, my goal with this episode is to help parents use unschooling principles to spark a genuine love for reading in their children by making books accessible, relevant, and enjoyable without turning reading into a chore. Way more difficult than it probably sounds. Or maybe it sounds really difficult, I'm not quite sure. I know that anytime I'm trying to do education with my children, I have this this belief because I went to school. And anytime I think I'm going to have them do something, or I want them to do something, it's like, how do I get them to do that? They're going to hate it just like I did. And the truth is, as long as you use the unschooling principles, they will not hate it. This is going to open up doors for them, and that's what we should probably focus on. But before we get into some of the particulars here, I want to talk about, the first thing I want to talk about is we need to remove pressure from reading, okay? I remember being an avid reader when I was young, an avid reader. I read anything. My grandmother was a librarian. We used to spend any time at her place, we'd have to go to the library with her. And what did we do? We read books. They had videos there that we would take back. I watched a lot of Harry and the Hendersons. I remember that one specifically there. They also had computers, so we'd play a little bit with that, but you could only do so much on there because it was the early 90s. And the main thing that I did was read. At least one of the main things I did. So I was just book after book. I get as many as I could handle. And as soon as school started assigning me stuff to read that I did not want to read, I dropped reading completely. Because I was pressured, it became a chore. When kids will read more when reading is not assigned or forced. So I suggest we ditch the reading logs, you know how they do that stuff, record your reading and how much time you do it, and drop the daily book reports or whatever they're doing. I think they kill curiosity. A child who once loved telling stories stops reading when it becomes homework. Or reading stories, I should say. Remove the pressure, and their interest often returns on its own, but they have to be able to choose it. They have to have a choice. So again, we're using unschooling principles, so it's interest-based, child-led. So they get to choose what they want to learn, and it's what they're interested in, and when they want to do it. Child-led. We're not going to force them. That is step one. If you have not done that, and your child hates reading, remove the pressure. Make books attractive. All right? One of the ways to make books attractive, and this is my next point, is create a bed of books. My kids literally have their beds stacked with books. I added a a bookshelf to each of their beds so that they could just fill it with books, and it's overflowing. They literally have so many books that they could read for days straight and probably not finish all of them. We also, I should back up, the reason we do this is because we have no strict bedtime. We have no strict wake-up time. Well, we might have a wake-up time, but we allow them to go to bed and wake up whenever they want. As long as they're quiet, they can turn on their light and they can read or do something, anything that's quiet, which is usually books. We made reading feel like a privilege. We're reframing it, right? First, we removed the pressure, and now it's going to be a privilege. It's like, let them sit bored in their bed with this strategy, and then give them a book and see what happens. They go to bed, at 9 o'clock, but they're not going to sleep till 10. They're going to be bored out of their minds. And books are the solution. We're reframing it, right? It's not a chore. It's, man, this is actually going to be interesting. So have them go to the library. Say, hey, I'll let you go to the library and get a book. Or if you want to pick one out of here, you can. And all of a sudden, you might start to find that they're opening up a book. You can fill their bed or nightstand with the comics. Even that, they're reading. Anything. Short stories, trivia books, adventure novels, textbooks, whatever they're into, whatever they choose. This quiet time allows them to also develop focus, so it's not just single-purposed. They're going to have an environment that is calm and quiet so they can actually dive into something and learn how to focus on something, to dive in. That's another one. There's no distractions, just books. This is a life skill. So that's dual-purposed. But they can learn quite a bit when they do this. Yeah, there's fun fiction, and that's primarily what a lot of my children read. But there's also a lot of stuff that they choose to read otherwise that's actually teaching them something. Next thing I want to talk about is let their interest choose the book. So I mentioned this, but I want to make sure I'm very clear on this. Reading is almost effortless when the topic is already exciting to them. All right? It doesn't require any pressure. It doesn't require anything other than handing it to them and let them go. Use their obsessions. My kids are in World War II. Boom. They got my son's got World War II books. I also got him a world history book and a World War I book because he was interested in it. And now I'm going to open his world to that. Animals is my daughter. Space is my other son. All as entry points into books. This makes them come back. Intentional unschooling says we provide a ton of resources, and that in this case it's going to be books when a child is interested in a topic, and they're going to absorb it without pressuring them. This is the efficiency to unschooling. I don't need to get on my kids. I don't need to go over and force them to do things. I don't need to give them grades to scare them into doing it the right way, or the way that I say is the right way. Instead, we're going to use books as something to build them, something that's pleasurable, something that they're interested in. Let them be children. Moving on. Use TV and games to spark reading curiosity. I know this sounds weird, but use screens to spark interests. We use screens sparingly. We don't have TV on all the time or anything like that. But when a show or game sparks a question, often a book can go much deeper. This is the moment we lean in when they're interested. So, for example, one thing we've done in our house is they were interested in World War II. It kind of frames the world as the stage, and like the world's changing today. We're going from really the way the world was set up post World War II to a new era, and things are changing. Right, Russia, China, the U.S., other countries, the Middle East, alliances are changing. The world's changing, and they asked questions about it, and I said, well, this is why we did that. This is why the world works this way. And it eventually led into World War II. It was just, what were the politics of the day? What was going on? What happened in Europe? What happened in the U.S.? These questions about why the world is the way, why this is a big deal, something's going on today, went back into history. Those questions I used to spark interest. I started answering the questions. And then I said, hey, let's watch this documentary on World War II. They were really interested. which then we pivoted after that into providing books. We actually put a textbook in my oldest son's room because he was interested in it. He said he wanted to get it, and he read that whole thing through. I just found out almost twice now, every single word of that textbook about World War II. He knows more about World War II than I think, I probably do, and that's saying something, because I study a lot about World War II, and I was in the military, so you tend to gravitate to some of that stuff. But turn their love for astronauts, history, math, coding, animals, whatever it might be, into a launch pad for reading. It might be a book series, or maybe, they could even read TV manuals. It doesn't matter. A manual to how to operate some equipment. Or maybe that's something that they're really interested in. I know that's one thing I would actually take to bed when I was a kid, is I wanted to learn my new Christmas gift and everything that it does, so I'd take the manual to bed. And it was a really cool way to dive in. My oldest child is also obsessed with coding, so he started reading coding books. That's something he's been into. And this one's specific to how to build your own video games. Really, really cool stuff. And stuff that other kids aren't necessarily interested in. Don't expect your kids to be interested in that. My other child is not interested in as much the math stuff as much as he is into the fiction stuff. Totally fine. Totally fine. I would like him to get interested in some of the other stuff, but he's 9. He's got time. And if he learns it at 16, he learns it at 16. I really don't care. Well, I kind of do, but I don't have a choice. I'm committed. I don't want him to hate learning. I don't want him to hate reading. I don't want him to hate math. That's what we lose when we force. So it's on their terms. But again, we're guides. As an intentional unschooler, we're guiding our children to do what is best for them. But we don't want to force. Again, this is learning. This is not, don't hit your sister. This is sparking an interest and growing it. Another trick we have is we go to the library often. Again, let them lead though. Treat the library as a treasure hunt, not a school trip. This is not you have to pick out 10 books and you have to go over and finish these by the time we get back. No, this is a treasure hunt. We're going to go there and explore and find something we're interested in. Where do you want to grow in? Maybe there's a software that they're using that they would like to expand their knowledge in. All that stuff, anything. Get them in there, within child limits, of course. Use your parental judgment. Don't just let them get anything. But anything within reason. Let them wander. Grab 20 books if they want. Don't filter unless asked. And, unless that's something inappropriate. I know our children leave the library with a bag full of books on dinosaurs, coding, fiction, history, all because they want them, not because we force them. So it's really cool watching them get into stuff that maybe you're interested in too. Maybe your love for this topic, a certain topic, will bleed over to them. Talk about it with them. Get them interested. Speaking of that, next thing I want to talk about is read what you love in front of them. I'm really bad at this. I'm not an avid reader. I went to school and they made me hate reading. Not my fault in the beginning. My fault later in life, though. Here's the thing, though. I read textbooks more so. That's kind of my thing. I like dense information that is organized in a way where I can find the information easily. Because I want to learn in depth on a certain topic, and we're going to get niche. That's me. I'm not a big fiction guy. Although I do enjoy it, I try and make an effort to do that every once in a while. I know when I was in the military, I used to bring fiction books with me, but I'd also bring a lot of nonfiction. That was my bread and butter. It's nonfiction. But I did try and get into it, and it's just hard for me to pick up a book. I don't know. There's just a lot of resistance unless it's something that it's going to serve a purpose. But that's just me in general. If you do pick up a book, share what you're reading out loud and mention an interesting fact you found. Whatever might be interesting and stood out. Show them that learning, reading is fun. And they're going to think that this just never dies. If they only see kids read in school, that's the only time they will want to read or choose to read. Reading is a school thing. How many people do you know that don't read books because it was a school thing? Oh, the last book I read was when they forced me to read it in 5th grade. Oh, man. Bad move. Bad move. That's not a good strategy for life. books are where it's at. Again, there's plenty of things in 2025 that we can do to help us learn. But still in 2025, books just have all this information that you can take with you anywhere. I know the internet's great, but books tend to be very organized in a particular way if you want to look for some interesting ways to learn, right? Like textbooks or something. An example of I try and make books available as well, books that I might be reading. And again, I don't read a lot of books, but I have some books that might be interesting to little boys. For example, I got survival skills, a whole bunch of books on those. Now, they don't have access to those as they're in my room because I like to pull them out when I'm in bed, if I'm going to do it. I don't do it often. I'm not going to try and fool you. But I do have them around, and they can see them. Eventually, I'm going to put up a bookshelf in the dining room because that's the only place we got room, because we filled up the bedroom with multiple bookshelves. And these are going to be books that I like to read as well, or books that I think would be beneficial for them, not just books that they picked out. And those survival ones are going to go on there. So that way they can use them too. Moving on. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention before I move on is you do this to, I guess I did mention it. I just want to make my point clear. You're modeling that adults read, and you're showing that it's actually enjoyable and it's something that you want to do. So that way they have a vision in their head of a future filled with learning and books. I think we were built to read. I don't know why, but it just feels natural, even though I try and resist it. But I read on the computer all the time. That's where my reading's done, for the most part. And you could do Kindle and stuff like that or whatever, the iPad. I just tend to think that screens can cause problems if you have them on too much. So I think it's good to have a physical book. They can write in the margins. At least that's what I do. Stuff like that. Moving on, build a culture of curiosity and conversation. So let reading naturally flow into conversation at the dinner table, at the car, when you're walking, whatever it might be. The curiosity then leads to more in-depth research into something if you don't know the answer. And it's just that little cue for you to provide more stuff to them. Don't quiz them with pressure, although quizzing can be fun, at least to some kids. What we want is them to just enjoy bringing up topics, and then you can make that quiz a game, something like that. But you really want it to be based around curiosity. Right now, one of the things we're doing is learning words. I know it's not necessarily reading, but it helps them understand vocabulary. So I got a whole bunch of, I think it's GRE vocabulary words. So it's longer words. I mean, the words I would like to learn too. So we're doing that as a family. Every night we pull out these words, we use them in a sentence, and we just make it a fun game. Who can do it? And then we try and use the words throughout the day, and whoever is able to use those words gets points. And we lightly keep track. We make it fun. I know something that we've done that naturally flowed in the conversation, and there's plenty of examples, but something that stuck out to me was we were talking about mental math. We were quizzing at math at the dinner table, just having a lot of fun with it. And I got a book on mental math, and my child actually brought that back into his room to read it so he could get better at mental math, to learn some of the tricks and beat everyone. We made it a game to see who could do it. Then he started teaching me some of these tricks. Really cool. Conversation. Who knew? Talking to your kids works. Moving on. The next point I want to make is equip their environments for success. So make sure books are available everywhere. So I already talked about making them available in the bedroom. That's the best hack right there. But have them bring books when you got to go to a doctor's appointment. Maybe they're in the long car ride. Just make them available. That's why I want to put books in the dining room, is because just they see it, They think about it, and then maybe they pull it out and they want to read it. I know my daughter right now pulled out a book. We just got done, me and my son built a desk in her dining room. So she went over and she got a book. She laid it out on her new desk and is reading it right now because we have books available. So everywhere, especially the bedrooms. And this includes a mix of books, right? Comic books, joke books, world records, cookbooks, textbooks, fiction, nonfiction, all the different types. Each kid has their own personality, and you really want to meet them where they're at because they will do exponential growth in whatever category it is. So if it's a joke book, hey, that's building their personality, right? And that's very important. They learn how to interact with others. Maybe a part of their personality is they may not make other people laugh. They find enjoyment with that. Maybe it's to break the silence. They just little things. They're growing. Let them grow. It doesn't need to be a productive thing in your head. Fiction in my head is non-productive, but it does build a love for reading and the ability to go over and have long periods of focus where you're not in the outside world, you're actually in a whole new world in your head. I think that's a valuable skill to build. Just that ability to focus and use your imagination. And that's one of the things that fiction books really do. I read The Godfather. I've never seen the movie, but I didn't totally finish it because I can't remember why. I have a good excuse, I'm sure. But I really enjoyed the book, and it was really good because my imagination was going crazy with some of the things that they were talking about. It was, wild. Chuck Palahniuk is something I was into in my 20s. I wouldn't recommend it. It's kind of gross. But he's the guy who wrote Fight Club. And if you read the book Fight Club, it's a little bit different than the actual movie. And I hate to say it because Fight Club is one of my favorite movies. The book's actually better. People who say that used to drive me nuts. So I decided to pull out one of my favorite movies and read the book that it was based on. And sure enough, they were right. Couldn't believe it. Your imagination builds. So that's a great reason to get out books. Last thing I want to talk about. Celebrate the love of story, not the act of reading itself. Celebrate the learning that happens, not the fact that they're actually reading. Reading's just the tool. Reading is an avenue to get there. Reading is something that you might enjoy. But we're after capturing their love for reading and what it does for them. Not just, you're going to read, go. It's not the actual reading that does anything. It's the love for reading that does it. So I'm not too strict. I like to mix things up. It doesn't have to be from books. Audiobooks are fine. Podcasts, family read-alouds count too. Again, this isn't reading, but it does tap into that imagination. They are still learning. Again, I'm trying to cultivate a love for physical books, not a Kindle necessarily, not a audiobook necessarily, but that love for reading that so many kids miss. And I really do believe that it is because of the way we pressure them to read at such a young age. And I just want to go off on a little bit of a tangent here for a moment. Why do you think they pressure kids to read so early? You think it's just for their benefit, right? Well, why? Let me ask this question. If it was for the kids' benefit, and we're trying to force them to read earlier than they might be ready, and they end up not liking it or thinking they're dumb or getting a label like, you're in the slow class or whatever they call it, 2025. Why do you think they do this? Because it's earlier and earlier and earlier. I don't think it's because of the kids' benefit, although there's a good argument for that. What I think it is, and some other unschoolers should probably agree with me, is if you can read, then you can teach yourself. You can hand them a worksheet. You don't have to do all the work. Excuse me. When kids can't learn by reading or follow instructions by reading, it's all on the teacher. It's very labor intensive. So they can get a lot more done if they teach your kids to read as early as possible. Then you can transition to worksheets. You can transition to just read the chapter. And what do kids not do? Not do the worksheets, and they don't read the chapter. And then they end up hating reading. Not good. I think that if a kid doesn't learn to read to 8, then that's fine. There's a problem somewhere, right? There's some kind of trauma because 8's a little bit late. But if you try and pressure your kid, you're going to make them hate it and avoid it. Does it matter? If they become an avid reader at 8, but they weren't all before that in their life, and there's no problems with them in adulthood or teenage years, it doesn't slow them down at all. It's just they learned at 8. Is that really a problem for you? You're going to get scared. But think about it. Is that really a problem? It's not. Because you're already involved in your child's life. You're already getting them interested in things. It might slow them down at a point in time, up to 8. But after that, they're just going to straight up, exponentially increase their learning. Because now they have all these books and they're going to it's a whole new world. And now they've found their love for reading that they hadn't found before. That's very important. So I am not pushing for early reading. My daughter, we didn't even really teach her how to read. She just picked it up. It was amazing. We just read her books, and all of a sudden one day we were watching the World War II thing, and she's reading, I can't remember the word she read, but it was America is, thermonuclear. That's what the word. America prepares for thermonuclear war. So it was the Cold War stuff we were watching. And I'm like, I couldn't believe what last time I read with her, my wife does most of the reading with her. And this wasn't a long period. It was only a couple months, I believe, maybe like 2 months, 3 months. I know I should read to my daughter more. And we do now. But it was a really busy season. My wife did most of the reading. And she went from doing spelling out and trying to sound out 3-letter words. 4-letter words were harder. To reading thermonuclear in months. Tell me, and that's all just by letting her absorb it. She memorized the books my wife read to her, and then she learned those words. Amazing. I couldn't believe what I saw. I didn't put hardly any effort into it. I just read to her when she asked me, or I felt like, just doing something nice with her. Kids love to learn. You have to allow the space for it. So parents, chill out. Cultivate the love. Don't force. It'll happen in their own time. God has a purpose for you. God has a timeline for you. There is no wrong here. Right? We're going to allow it to happen in its own timing. And we're not going to stress out. We're not going to freak out. We're going to encourage. We're going to try and point out the value of reading. We're going to try and find their interest. We're going to try and make it easy. We're going to provide plenty of resources, but we're not going to force them. Okay? So with that, I'm going to end today's episode. So stay curious, stay unschooled, and stay away from the algebra nightmares. I'll catch you in the next episode. So here's where we roll up our sleeves and bring out the big guns. If you support our mission, then please leave a review. On Unschooled Unleashed, we are talking about using a radical approach to education in today's world, and the more 5-star reviews we have, the more people will feel comfortable with the ideas, strategies, and principles we discuss. It gives legitimacy to our message, and the podcast's algorithm prioritizes us so we can reach more people. You may even have your 5-star review read on our podcast. Before I let you go, I have to pause and say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Your presence here is the fuel that ignites this movement. I am incredibly moved that you trust in us enough to click play. You, my friends, are the caped heroes in this story, the guardians of your family's learning journey, and a beacon of hope for your community. Be bold. Do what you think is best for you and your family. Thanks again for tuning in and taking this courageous leap outside of the box for this educational revolution. Welcome to the front line.